What if I told you that the most dangerous people in any society aren't the obvious criminals, but the ones who are supposed to protect justice and instead corrupt it from within? Right now, in courtrooms, boardrooms, and government offices around the world, people in positions of authority are making decisions they know are wrong, but they're making them anyway because corruption has become more profitable than integrity. This isn't a new problem, it's as old as civilization itself. 3,000 years ago, King David wrote what might be the most psychologically intense analysis of corrupt leadership ever recorded, and his insights are so accurate that modern political scientists and criminologists still study his observations about how power corrupts and why corrupt systems eventually destroy themselves. But here's what makes Psalm 58 absolutely explosive. David doesn't just analyze the problem, he predicts the solution with such confidence that it reads like he's already witnessed the downfall of every corrupt leader in history. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover why people in power choose evil, even when they know better. How corrupt systems contain the seeds of their own destruction. And most importantly, why understanding these patterns can protect you from being manipulated by those who abuse authority. Welcome back to Learning English Through Bible, where we explore the most sophisticated psychology and advanced language patterns hidden in ancient texts. Today we're tackling Psalm 58, and I need to warn you, this is one of the most intense psychological profiles in the entire Bible. David uses language so vivid and imagery so disturbing that this psalm reads like a criminal psychology textbook written in poetry. But here's what makes this absolutely invaluable for English learners. David demonstrates how to express moral outrage, build logical arguments against corruption, and declare justice with some of the most powerful rhetorical techniques in the English language. If you want to understand how native speakers use metaphor, repetition, and escalating imagery to expose wrongdoing and demand accountability, you've found a masterpiece of confrontational communication. Make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. You're about to learn vocabulary and sentence structures that will give you the tools to identify, analyze, and respond to corruption with the precision and power of biblical prophecy. Psalm 58 opens with a devastating question that cuts straight to the heart of corrupt leadership. Do you rulers indeed speak justly? Do you judge people with equity? The word indeed is crucial here. It suggests disbelief, like David is saying. Really? Are you seriously claiming to be fair? The rhetorical questions aren't seeking information. They're accusations disguised as inquiries. Speak justly and judge with equity are sophisticated legal terms meaning to communicate truthfully and make decisions based on fairness rather than favoritism. This teaches English learners how to use rhetorical questions to challenge authority and how to employ formal vocabulary when discussing justice and governance. David immediately answers his own questions with brutal honesty. No, in your heart you devise injustice, and your hands mete out violence on the earth. The phrase "in your heart you devise" reveals that corruption isn't accidental, it's planned, deliberate, intentional. These leaders aren't making mistakes. They're designing unfair systems. Mete out is sophisticated vocabulary meaning to distribute or dispense, usually in measured quantities. When David says they mete out violence, he's describing systematic, calculated harm being distributed by those who should be protecting people. This demonstrates advanced English vocabulary for describing intentional versus accidental wrongdoing. The psychological analysis deepens. Even from birth the wicked go astray. From the womb they are wayward, spreading lies. This is David's explanation for how some people become so thoroughly corrupt, their moral compass has been broken since the beginning. Go astray means to wander from the right path, while wayward suggests stubborn rebellion against proper direction. Spreading lies shows that corruption always involves deception. Corrupt people can't operate in full honesty because their actions can't withstand truth. This teaches English learners vocabulary for describing different types of moral failure and the progression from personal corruption to public harm. David uses one of the most disturbing metaphors in the Bible. Their poison is like the poison of a snake, like that of a cobra that has stopped its ears, that will not heed the tune of the charmer. However skillful the enchanter may be, this metaphor works on multiple levels. Corrupt leaders are like venomous snakes. Their words and decisions inject poison into society. But David adds a crucial detail. They're like deaf cobras who refuse to respond to snake charmers. In ancient times, snake charmers used music to control dangerous serpents. David is saying that corrupt leaders have made themselves immune to moral influence. They won't respond to reason, wisdom, or ethical appeals, no matter how skillfully presented. The prayer for justice begins with shocking imagery. Break the teeth in their mouths, O God. Lord, tear out the fangs of those lions. David is asking God to remove the weapons that corrupt leaders use to harm others. Break the teeth and tear out the fangs suggests removing their ability to bite, wound, or devour the innocent. This metaphor teaches English learners how to use animal imagery to describe human predatory behavior and how to express desires for the removal of harmful capabilities rather than just punishment. David continues with rapid-fire metaphors for how he wants corruption to be eliminated. Let them vanish like water that flows away. When they draw the bow, let their arrows fall short. Water that flows away disappears completely. David wants corruption to be totally eliminated, not just reduced. Draw the bow and arrows fall short creates an image of corrupt leaders trying to attack but finding their weapons ineffective. This teaches advanced English learners how to use metaphors of disappearance and ineffectiveness to express desires for the complete neutralization of threats. The imagery becomes even more vivid. May they be like a slug that melts away as it moves along, like a stillborn child that never sees the sun. The slug metaphor is particularly gross but effective. Slugs leave a trail of slime as they dissolve, just like corruption leaves a trail of damage as it destroys itself. Stillborn child that never sees the sun suggests that corrupt systems, despite seeming powerful, are actually dead from the beginning and will never experience true life or success. This demonstrates sophisticated English vocabulary for expressing the ultimate futility of evil systems. David's confidence in divine justice explodes. Before your pots can feel the heat of the thorns, whether they be green or dry, the wicked will be swept away. This metaphor comes from cooking over an open fire using thorn bushes as fuel. David is saying that God's justice will be so swift that corrupt leaders will be removed before they can even get their plans fully heated up. The phrase, whether they be green or dry, covers all possibilities, whether corruption is new or old, fresh or established, it will be eliminated equally quickly. The psalm reaches its climax with a shocking statement about the righteous. The righteous will be glad when they are avenged, when they dip their feet in the blood of the wicked. This isn't promoting violence, it's using a hyperbolic language to express the satisfaction that comes when justice finally prevails after long periods of oppression. Dip their feet in blood was an ancient expression, meaning to walk through a battlefield after victory. David is saying that good people will feel relief and vindication when corrupt systems finally collapse. The conclusion focuses on what justice proves to observers. Then people will say, surely the righteous still are rewarded. Surely there is a God who judges the earth. The repetition of surely expresses absolute certainty. When corrupt systems finally fall, it proves two crucial points. First, that living righteously isn't pointless, even when it seems unrewarded. And second, that moral authority exists in the universe. This teaches English learners how to use adverbs surely to express different levels of certainty and conviction. What makes Psalm 58 psychologically profound is David's understanding that corruption isn't just about individual bad choices. It's systemic, designed, and self-perpetuating. His metaphor of deaf cobras reveals that corrupt leaders eventually become incapable of moral reasoning. They've trained themselves to ignore ethical appeals, to resist wisdom, to be immune to the very influences that could save them from destruction. The language patterns in this psalm demonstrate advanced English techniques for moral argumentation. David uses rhetorical questions to expose hypocrisy, metaphorical language to make abstract corruption concrete, and escalating imagery to build emotional intensity. His progression from questioning to accusing to predicting to celebrating shows how to structure confrontational communication for maximum impact. David's analysis of corrupt leadership is remarkably modern. His observation that wicked people devise injustice in their heart matches current research on the psychology of white-collar crime, which shows that most corruption involves careful planning rather than impulsive decisions. His metaphor of poison spreading through society reflects modern understanding of how institutional corruption contaminates entire systems. The animal metaphors throughout the psalm, snakes, lions, slugs, teach English learners sophisticated techniques for describing human behavior. Using natural imagery, this isn't just creative language, it's psychological analysis. Comparing corrupt leaders to venomous snakes emphasizes their hidden danger. Comparing them to lions highlights their predatory nature. Comparing them to slugs suggests their ultimate weakness and self-destructive tendencies. David's confidence in eventual justice isn't based on wishful thinking, it's based on his observation that corrupt systems contain the seeds of their own destruction. People who go astray from birth and become like deaf cobras have damaged their own capacity for survival. They can't respond to warning signals, they can't adjust their behavior when threatened, and they eventually make fatal miscalculations because they've lost the ability to perceive reality accurately. The progression of David's prayer requests reveals sophisticated understanding of how justice should work. He doesn't ask for corrupt leaders to be tortured or humiliated. He asks for their weapons to be removed, their effectiveness to be neutralized, and their systems to dissolve. This demonstrates mature thinking about justice as restoration of proper order rather than revenge. For English learners, Psalm 58 provides vocabulary and structures for discussing difficult topics like corruption, systemic injustice, and moral failure. David demonstrates how to use formal language for serious accusation, how to employ metaphorical language to make abstract concepts concrete, and how to structure arguments that move from identification of problems to prediction of solutions. The Psalm's relevance to modern corruption is striking. David's description of leaders who devise injustice in their heart, while publicly claiming to judge with equity perfectly, describes contemporary scandals where public officials privately pursue personal gain, while publicly claiming to serve the common good. His insight that corrupt people become like deaf cobras explains why so many corrupt leaders seem incapable of recognizing their own wrongdoing, even when it's obvious to everyone else. David's understanding that corruption spreads poison through society matches modern research on how institutional corruption creates cultures of dishonesty that affect everyone within those systems. His confidence that corrupt systems will eventually vanish like water that flows away reflects the historical pattern that deeply corrupt institutions eventually collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. The psychological insight that corrupt people are wayward from the womb doesn't excuse their behavior. It explains why reasoning with thoroughly corrupt individuals is often ineffective. People who have spent their entire lives training themselves to ignore moral constraints have literally rewired their brains to be immune to ethical appeals. This is why David's prayer focuses on divine intervention rather than human persuasion. For anyone dealing with corrupt systems today, Psalm 58 offers both analysis and hope. The analysis helps us understand that we're not dealing with people who accidentally make wrong choices, but with individuals who have systematically trained themselves to ignore moral reasoning. The hope comes from David's absolute confidence that such systems cannot ultimately survive because they violate the fundamental principles that govern reality itself. The final message of Psalm 58 is that justice isn't just about punishment, it's about validation. When corrupt systems finally collapse, it proves that righteousness wasn't pointless, that moral principles aren't just human inventions, and that the universe itself is structured to reward integrity and eliminate corruption. David's vision of people saying, "Surely there is a God who judges the earth," represents the restoration of faith in moral order that comes when justice finally prevails after long periods of apparent defeat.